This video is to check the assumption that for any value of the explanatory variables, the dependent variable is normally distributed. To test this assumption, we will check to see that the residuals, or that the histogram of the residuals, shows the residuals to be normally distributed. So what I want to do here is I want to create a histogram of the residuals, which are given in our regression output right here. So you can see that on the right. So to do that, I'm going to highlight my residuals. So I'm going to highlight this full table of residuals, and I'm going to insert a histogram. So here we have a histogram. I'm going to move this somewhere else so that it's easy to find. It's in the middle of my worksheet right now, and knowing me, I will lose it. And there's my histogram. When you select histogram with Excel, so I highlighted my data and I selected histogram, it automatically groups ranges of residual values and counts the number of residuals in those ranges. And it gives you these rather awkward values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust these numbers by double clicking on that horizontal axis. Again, I double clicked on that horizontal axis, and then I get this format axis. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on these axis options, and it gives us information on the bins and how those bins are created. I'm going to start with our low value here. So our low value, our lowest residual was negative 387.73591. So I'm going to select a value for an underflow bin that's just above that. So I selected negative 380 here. Just above, before we had, when we did this automatically, we had negative 387. So I want to create a bin that my lowest value is going to be just under. So negative 380. And I type that in over here. Now I've got ranges at starting with below negative 380, and then it groups it based on the bin widths we have here. And it automatically gave us a bin width of 37. It's a bit of an awkward number. So now I'm going to play around with what that value should be. So I'm going to start with, let's say, 30. And I get these values shown right here. And I get to see the shape of my histogram. There is a bit of a problem here. Not only do I want to see if my residuals are normally distributed, I want to see if they're centered around 0. And currently, 0 would be somewhere in this range of negative 20 to 10. But it wouldn't be in the middle, it would be 2/3 of the way through that bar. So it's going to be hard to see if it's centered around 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my bin widths so that maybe I have 0 right in the middle here. So let's try something like negative 375 for my underflow bin and groups of 25. And now what you can see is that I have a division of negative 25 to 0 and 0 to 25. So I can see exactly where my 0 would be. It's just between these two bars. So did the peak of my normal distribution happen right at 0? Indeed it has. It's happened somewhere in this range. We can see the peak of our normal distribution, or the center of our normal distribution. Then I'm going to be looking for that bell-shaped distribution. And you know what? This looks really good for the most part, except for we have this one outlier over here, or potential outlier. And it can't be ignored that there's one very extreme residual that has to be addressed. So with that information, I'm going to say no, this regression is not satisfied. While we were very, very close to having it satisfied, it is this singular point right here that is outside the range of what's normally distributed, and it has to be investigated. So what I'm going to write in my answer now is, while the majority of the residuals form a normal distribution centered around 0, which is what we want, there is also an extreme residual, and that was negative 387, that needs to be investigated. And actually, that's just the end of it. That needs to be investigated. We're not going to use this regression output, as this extreme value needs to be investigated. And if I'm going to think forward here, it will be confirmed to be an outlier and will be removed from our data set.